Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Hello. It is a Wednesday. We are so glad you guys are joining us this evening with Mr. Dave Rogers, our master mentor for sync licensing here at Music Alliance. We're going to launch that poll directly, as you can see. So as soon as you get that poll, please go ahead and jot down your answers.
Do
Okay,
you have sync placements?
there you go.
Yes, a bunch. No, not yet. I've had a couple in the past. What's sync? Where are you at? Somebody answered, "What's sync?" You're in the right place.
Yeah,
You can learn.
exactly. Awesome. Yes. So we're going to, what David has decided to go back to basics because sometimes, sometimes some of us don't know what we're doing in sync. I'm still one of those people. I'm still learning and I'm very hesitant. But some of us, as you move forward, you forget certain things, right? That you're supposed to be doing with sync. And you're like, I could lose your placement opportunity. So Dave's going to take you back to the basics and hopefully cover everything you guys need to know so you can get started in sync. And of course, as always, questions for him in the chat, and then we'll break and I will read off some questions when we get some good ones. How's that, Dave?
Word, word.
Okay. Ladies and
Th-
gentlemen, Mr. Dave Rogers.
Dope, dope. Thank you, Janina. I appreciate it. So, just to jump right in, what we normally, I think this is my third year. Janine, this is my third year doing the
I believe so, yeah.
sync licensing thing. So, every year I start the curriculum over. You guys have jumped in at a great time. I run this almost like maybe 10 out of 12 months. I think Music Alliance takes a couple months off for certain things, but like for most of the year, we run this sync licensing thing down, and this is my third year doing it. So I appreciate all of you jumping in and listening to me rant about one of my favorite topics, which is sync licensing and why sync licensing. So jumping directly in, what is sync licensing and why should you do it? Glad you asked me that. So, sync licensing is the process in which your music is placed in TV, film, video games, web media, anything of that nature. If your music is used to synchronize the picture, that's what the term is in referring to. It's referring to synchronizing your music with visuals, with picture. And that now has expanded into multimedia and VR experiences and all kinds of things. Recently, I've had the opportunity to have my music placed on runway shows. Like they're playing my music during the runway shows, and I get a royalty for that. So that has been like an expansion. Like there's an expanse of things, not just Netflix and Hulu or TV or film or things like that. There's a plethora of outlets to which your music can be synced. So that covers a wide gamut of things. A wide gamut of things. So the process, what is sync licensing? How do we do that? I'm glad you asked. Sync licensing basically is a system in which music supervisors, either at a network or a studio or wherever, they require music. Let me backtrack. Let me backtrack for a minute. Put a pin right there. But all across, if you turn on any show or any movie, take a listen to how many songs go by throughout the course of said movie or said show. You might, in a movie, you might hear 100 different pieces of music. Not talking about the compositional portions that the composers that are hired for the show they do, because that's a hired position. They're like, let's say for like Stranger Things, there's some guys that work on Stranger Things that compose music specifically for that show. They are hired to do that. But they also use what's called needle drop or licensed music, which could come from anywhere. That could be It could come from a library, or it could come from independent producers. It could come from any source, any trusted source that the music supervisor trusts to get their music from. Let's say, hey, we're watching a show and a character's in a diner, in a 60s diner. What kind of music would you hear in a 60s diner? 60s music. So that music had to come from somewhere. They had to draw that music. And a lot of times, yes, there are well-known songs from those eras, but those well-known songs from those eras cost big dollars to license. Like, hey, these hit songs, the studios don't want to spend that kind of budget to get a real song, or like not necessarily like a real song, but like a prominent song, like a pop song that everybody knows. It's just to set the mood. And they say, hey, you know what we need right here? We need a song that's playing on the jukebox in the diner. When the character comes in, the character sits down and there's a song playing. And the song is talking about what the character's doing. And then the music supervisor's job is to go and find the director options that they can pick through. No, not that one. No, not that one. No, not hey, this one by David Rogers, that's pretty good. We should try this one. And the editor would place it as in what they call temp. It's called temp music. And they'll place it in as temp music. And the director says, yeah, that works. I like that. That's jiving with the scene. I like that. You know what? Leave that song in there. It could be, it's like Miss Shaw, yes. A lot of times, most of my sync placements are instrumentals. So a lot of times what you'll have is there'll be, let's say, like one of my recent placements is Chicago PD. And Chicago PD uses a lot of like gritty hip hop and like, they're just gritty hip hop instrumentals. But the composer will play music over the top of the gritty instrumental in the same key. So it works together in the context of that show, but that was still my song that got placed. So it comes up whenever my cue sheet comes back. I'll get to that in a second, what that is. Whenever that cue sheet comes back and it says, hey, we use David Rogers music in this show from this time to that time, then it pops up on my BMI, because I'm with the PRO BMI. If you come back, I'll tell you a little bit about PROs. I'll get to it pretty soon in this session, but I'll explain thoroughly what a PRO is. But it comes back on my PRO, which is BMI, and it says, hey, Dave Rogers, we owe you this much money for your song appearing in this show from this time to this time. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll put that money in my pocket, pay my taxes, and then I go about my business. And it's a great thing. And so this is the process. That's a short example of what sync licensing is, like what it entails. It has the director, the music supervisor, the editor, and any one of those people could be responsible for grabbing your track or using it, or there might be somebody at a music library. I work with the music libraries a lot. And they might say, hey, the studio might, or the director might go to a music library or to a studio, might go to an agency and say, hey, we need music for this thing that's coming up. We need your producers to get on and start cranking away at this idea that we have. We have this show. It's about funny aliens. So we need funny alien music. What does that sound like? They don't know, and we don't know. So they they send the library what's called a brief. And this brief is just a synopsis of what the studio was looking for. Hey, we're looking for songs in this genre that are like this. No samples, no profanity, no this, no that, no this, no that, no AI, no this, and we need it by next Thursday. or we need it by Wednesday, 12 o'clock. And then all these, they blast this email out to all the producers that work on this music library, and they get to work working on funny alien music. Now, if you have funny alien music, which I don't know why you have that, then you get to be first in line. Boom, you send it in, and now you're the first one up that they get to listen to because you were prepared for that. But lots of times I'll get briefs for like, hey, we need inspirational pop music, or we're looking for gritty hardcore hip hop. We're looking for 90s hip hop. I'm getting calls for 90s hip hop now, emails a lot for like 90s stuff, 90s R&B. I'm getting a lot of briefs for grungy kind of rock, like butt rock, what they call, like for beer commercial kind of rock, like Dodge and Ford, like stuff like that. I'm getting emails for libraries looking for that type of stuff. I'm getting libraries calling for EDM and things of that nature. So it's not just one genre they're looking for. It's not just one style they're looking for. Just about every kind of well-crafted music can be used in sync. It's just when and what for. I digress. Let me get back to my point. Back to where I put my pen. We're talking about what sync is and why you should do it. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. I won't take long, I promise. But my story is I grew up as a musician in Chicago. I went to Chicago public schools, and I was a part of the music programs there, learned music. I grew up, obviously, I'm African American. I grew up in church. I learned to play the drums in church at about 5 years old. And that kind of sent me down a pathway of learning music. I come from a musical family. My mom and dad are both musicians. So I had sort of that base growing up. And in Chicago, I started learning to produce in high school. My high school was the only high school in Chicago at the time with an actual recording studio in it. And I wasn't in that class, but I bogarted my way into that class to learn to produce because I was that adamant about it. The teacher basically would kick me out every single day because I would show up to this class because I wanted that much to learn. After high school, I went directly to working in studios, interning, getting sandwiches, making coffee, sweeping the floor. That being said, that offered me the chance to interact with real actual producers. This is like 1995, 6, 7. I'm learning the business. I'm 18 years old. I'm learning the music business. I moved to Las Vegas. Long story short, I moved to Las Vegas and I'm young. I'm 19 years old. I'm making my way around the studios, and eventually I run into a guy who says, "Hey man, you produce pretty good." Like, "Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate it." To this point, I've only produced for artists. I never even heard, it didn't even cross my mind that, hey, my music could be on TV. He said, "Hey man, you produce pretty good. What if I can get to it? How many tracks you got?" At this time, I'm probably sitting on about 100 tracks maybe, and then like 300 loops in my hard drive. You know how, sidebar, for those of you all who are producers, you know how you'll start a loop and you'll be like, "Yo, I'll get back to it eventually." Anybody, put it in the chat if you do that. Like, "Yo, I'll get back to it." Like, "Yo, it's a pretty good idea. Like someday I'll get back to making that a song." And you put it in your hard drive and it's like, okay, beat number 6. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all right. And, oh, Emery, you went to, cool. So he's like, "Yeah, man, what if I could take those tracks that you're not trying to place or nothing like that, take the tracks you're not using, what if you finish those and I can get those on TV for you?" Like, all right, cool. They just sitting on my hard drive, not doing nothing. I'm cool with that. Yeah, let's go. So I do a handshake deal with this guy. Bad move. Absolutely bad move. Don't do that. But I do. I'm super young. I'm young, fresh, green as the backside of a dollar bill. I'm fresh to the industry. I don't really know anything. And this guy, he's fresh. He knows he got the chains. He looks like producer guy. He looks the part. So I'm like, he must be legit. So might as well give all of my intellectual property to this dude and see what he can do with it. So I do that. And we handshake. The handshake deal is, hey, we're going to split this stuff 50-50. I'll make a BMI account for you. Another bad decision. I'm making bad decisions left and right at this point. I'll make a BMI account for you since you don't know how to do that. And I'll manage it for you. And then, you know, when the time comes, you'll start seeing money from it. And sure enough, I start to hear the tracks that I produce on TV, on BET, on VH1. I'm watching Real Housewives of the Moon or whatever. And then my track comes on. I'm like, hey, this is a pretty good track. Wait, this is my track. And so I'm listening to this music. I'm like, oh, I'm finna get paid. Oh, I know. Because every show, I'm hearing my tracks all over the place now. I'm like, oh, I know that check finna be so good. Oh, I'm playing like I'm finna get a Bentley. Oh, it's gonna be amazing. So that being said, a year goes by. No check. Man, like, I'm calling the guy. He's like, hey, man, I'll call you back. You know how people give you the runaround. Hey, I'll call you back. Oh, man. Like, about almost an entire year, like 365 days go by. I'm kind of adamant with this dude. Hey, bro, like, yo, I thought you said that I'm hearing my music on TV. I thought you said I'm going to get paid. He's like, man, be patient, bro. It take a little while. So I start to see checks, but, man, these checks don't look like what I'm seeing. Like, as much as my music is playing on TV, like, these checks should be looking a little bit better, shouldn't they? So I actually call BMI. Thank God that when you call BMI, you can get someone on the phone. I don't know about ASCAP. I've never called them. But I called BMI, and I talked to a dude who's consequentially, his name was Dave, too. And me and Dave kind of walked me down through the process. Hey, man, this is how BMI works. This is what's happening. He's like, he was able to pull my account up. It's like, hey, yeah, this guy kind of got you. There's nothing. He's like, we're not lawyers. There's nothing we can really do about that. Like, if you want to litigate against this guy, like, if you said your agreement was 50-50, he's taking 80% here and doing 100% of this track and 50% of this one, but like 75% of that one. Like, yo, it was all over the place. And so that being said, that was kind of my foray into getting into sync. Yes, my music got on TV. Yes, I did get placements, but I got it through what's called a sync aggregator. This sync aggregator, basically what he was doing was going around to producers, aggregating all these tracks, and he would go to the libraries and say, hey, I have 500 tracks that that are free and clear, that can be licensed to you. I have 500, 600 tracks here right now, a bucket of tracks. And that's how he was getting these mass placements. That being said, this taught me a valuable lesson at an early age. Like, one, you absolutely must know the business side of music. Sidebar, the music business is almost 95% business. For those of y'all who are really talented and like, yo, you got just a garage full of talent, you got a basement full of talent, that's awesome. But if you do not know the business side of music, you will get trampled on by those who do. One of my mentors, once I finally got a mentor, he said the number one music business rule is you never get what you deserve. You only get what you negotiate. And if you come back to this class, almost every other class, you'll hear me repeat that. You never get what you deserve. You only get what you negotiate. And it has to be written down. And so that being said, that put me on the pathway to learning the business and learning the business side. The blessing is that you're here with me now after I've made my mistakes so that you can learn from the mistakes that I made so you don't make the mistakes that I made. That should be worth something. If you think that's worth something, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe Music Alliance is a place for you. So later on, we'll talk some more about that. But that being said, that's sort of how I got into sync licensing. It wasn't the best way, but it taught me valuable lessons, and it got me in got me learning the terminology. So after this has happened, I'm going back and I'm saying, okay, let me backtrack and backtrace how this dude was able to pull this off, because this is the grift of a century. So I started looking into libraries. I'm looking on my BMI statements and I'm seeing like, oh, I'm on this library. He sent my music to this library and this agency and that agency. And so what I did not want to do, I did not want to go and try and like backdoor those deals with those libraries. I don't know how they feel about those sorts of things. I'm still brand new. So I start looking for my own music libraries to join and working that process. Can you talk about how to get upfront sync fees? Yo, give me a second. I'll get right back to that. But yes, I'm starting to get more and more in depth with how to deal with these music libraries. And my primary end for music sync licensing is working with libraries. What is a music library? I keep saying music library, and I'm acting like y'all know what I'm talking about. But a music library is a repository of all kinds of genres of music. If you just go on your other tab and you Google music library, you're going to pull up about 200 music libraries. Some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are free, some of them are royalty free. Some of them just have even YouTube has a music library now where you can go and get royalty-free tracks. So these music libraries are repositories for music where music supervisors can go and get music from a trusted source. Why is it so important that these supervisors get music from a trusted source? Why don't they just go to your Spotify and get it from your Spotify? Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that music is unsolicited. The term unsolicited music means that it was just sent to them, or it came from an unlikely source. Like they don't know, did you steal this music? Does it belong to you? Did your friend write it? Did your cousin make this beat? They don't know. And they're very gun shy because no one wants to get litigated against. No one wants to have the lawyers coming for them when the track is on the next Avengers movie and then somebody can come back, hey, that was my song. Actually, this person got that illegally from me. Da-da-da-da-da. So that being said, these music supervisors are very, very particular about the music that they use and where they get it from. A lot of times, they will only go to one or two music libraries. Like these supervisors only go to one or two music libraries that they trust, that they've been getting music. They're like, yo, these people here, I trust them. I've never had a bad experience with them. I go there. It's like the McDonald's you go to. Yeah, you might pass 3 or 4, but you go to that one McDonald's and be like, hey, man, I know these people over here. So I don't know them back there. I know them, and I know my food going to be right. The same way, music supervisors, they work the same way. And that being said, yes, you might strike up a friendship, a kinship with the music supervisor. They might start sending you emails and things of that nature, and that might be a way for you to get on NSYNC licensing. It's highly unlikely, though. So that being said, I'm going to get back to Mia's question about upfront sync fees real quick. So sync pays out 1 or 2, maybe 3 ways, but like 1 or 2 ways. Normally, once your music is placed in a video or a movie or a TV show or something like that, you receive what's called a back-end royalty. A back-end royalty is money that was generated from your music being there, it comes to you eventually. That being said, that's one way. Also, if a library or an agency or an agent comes to you and says, hey, can you make for me this piece of music that goes here? There should be an upfront cost for them to say, okay, now here, we need this from you. In exchange, we'll give you this money and we'll give you this royalty on the back end, and you will receive what's called an upfront fee, an upfront licensing fee, or a back end fee. Now, let's say your homie wants to use your song for the opening of his podcast or something like that. And you say, hey, we'll do a contract. Give me $20 for the license, and you could use it for the life of the podcast or whatever, in perpetuity or until the Lord comes back, whatever. And then now you just issued a license and you received the fee from that license. Or your music might be in a public music repository or library and they get a license for that. Or let's say, hey, you're on BeatStars. I know a lot of producers that are working around that. BeatStars is a hustle. That's part of the hustle. And you can issue them a license to use your track for a specific amount of time. That also counts. And they will give you money and you say, hey, you can use this track for this long or up to this many streams for up to this many years or a year or this many months, and you have now issued them a license. That is an upfront licensing fee. Hopefully that answers your question, Mia. Throw it down in the chat if I was unclear or that did not answer your question. But getting back to what I'm talking about, because time is running out. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how I got into sync, and two, how sync typically works. Why should you get into sync? That's a lot. I get that question a lot. Like, okay, like, all right, Dave, why should I be doing this? If you, or who should be? Because I don't think it's for everybody. To be honest with you, I don't think sync is the road for every artist or every producer. I think that if you are able to work a specific way or your mind works a specific way, then sync might be for you. Who is sync for? That's a better question, I think, is who is sync best suited for? Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll expound on that. The type of producer I am, I'm a multi-hyphenate, multi-genre producer. I make everything. You see me, I'm in my studio, my commercial studio right now. If my cord was long enough, I'd give you a tour, but like it's attached to my computer. I'm in my commercial space right now. I got this space primarily because I make my wife mad making tracks late at night. So I needed a space where I could come to and make a bunch of noise without disturbing nobody and get my sync licensing work done. But that being said, I'm a multi-hyphenate, multi-genre producer. I play keys, bass, drums, guitar. I play some horns, kinda, well enough to get the job done. I ain't no Dizzy Gillespie in here. But that being said, I can make just about country, rock, pop, EDM, jazz, hip-hop, whatever. I can make it all. So that being said, I can participate in just about any brief, or I can accommodate any brief that comes down my plate if I so choose. Now, that has also led me down a specific road because most of my sync work is instrumental. I've only gotten that type of sync work. And on certain libraries, I'm the EDM guy. On this library, I'm the hip hop guy. On that library, I might be the jazzy R&B soul dude on this library. And I receive those types of communications and I work accordingly. Now, I work with some libraries that send me everything. Like, hey, we'll just send whatever comes down the pipe. We'll send it to you, and if you can make it, good. If it don't make it, oh well, we'll use it for something. It'll go somewhere. So that being said, that's one of the reasons why I primarily work in sync, because my brain is set up. The way I'm wired, I'm set up that way. If you're a writer and you can like, hey, I can write anything, or even more importantly, I can write commercial stuff. Let me put a pin right there. I run into a lot of people because I preach, like, I kind of proselytize sync licensing everywhere. I'm sort of like the sync licensing evangelist because I've had success here. So I'm always preaching the virtues of sync licensing. And I run into a lot of artists that want to get into it. But the problem is, they're like, yo, well, I got 8 albums. I'm like, okay, cool. Let me take a listen to your 8 albums. And none of it is either conceptual or it's vulgar, or it might have a commercial edge to it, but like not the commercial that we're talking about when it comes to like dealing with corporate entities. Pin right there. A lot of times when we're creating sync music, we have the mindset in the back of our mind that this is not the radio. This is not for radio. This is not for Spotify consumption. It might be good enough to put on Spotify. It might be good enough to put on streaming, but that's not the goal of the music that we're creating in the back of our minds when we just say, hey, I'm going to work on this sync licensing thing. We're making music that specifically caters to corporate entities, and can it be used in the next Apple keynote? Can it be used for a Target commercial? Go look up a Target commercial and see what kind of music they're using. And does your music match that? And I'm like, yo, like I said, I run into a lot of artists that, hey, man, like, yo, they got lots of music, but they don't make music that's conducive to use in these areas.
Dave, excuse me really quickly. There's a bunch of questions in the chat. If we could just go back a little bit. Anne Marie is asking, do you have an attorney look through any licensing agreement you get offered, or do you just have the library handle that aspect and you just trust them?
So the way libraries work is you do a deal with the library and they do what's called an admin deal, and you give them the go-ahead to act as you on your behalf. So that being said, the library is kind of like, hey, if a big deal comes through, they'll obviously alert you. But if a music supervisor comes through and grab your track, they're not alerting you until it gets placed. Some libraries will. Some libraries, you just have to look on your BMI and find out. Like, I had no idea I was even on that show, because they're not obligated to tell you. You just get your money when you get your money. So the library is working on your behalf sort of in that fashion. So it's not necessarily, hey, a deal on deal basis, but you might be working with an agent. And so backtrack. Remember, we talked about this earlier. There's libraries, there's music supervisors, and there's agencies. So let me talk a little bit about what an agency does. An agency, they primarily work with the brand. So for every commercial you see, an ad agency probably worked on that commercial. And the music that they use probably came from somebody at that agency, either going to a library and looking for it, or they did deals with producers, or they got that music legitimately from somewhere. Somebody at the label, at the agency is acting as a music supervisor for that agency. And let's say, hey, you make down tempo, like acoustic house or something weird like that, but it works for Victoria's Secret. So you find the agency that's currently working on the Victoria's Secret stuff and you email the music supervisor at whoever's working at that agency and say, hey, I have music I think that could work for this Victoria's Secret thing that I know you guys are doing. You're not going to use those words. You're going to be more professional than that. But like, you're going to say, hey, point blank, I have the music that you're looking for. And they can say, well, let's hear this music that we're looking for. And hopefully they like it and they want to use it. That agency will then pay you out directly for the ad, and they might give you back in. It varies. It varies. But a lot of times, if your music is used in a commercial or something like that, that was upfront. You got paid up front. So that might be 10K, 20K, 50K. They might just pay you out because those ad campaign budgets are insane. We're talking millions of dollars for one ad. So they might just say, hey, yeah, here's 10 grand for letting us use that music. If you work with 2K Games will pay you out up front and not even use your track. They just want to hold on to it.
That actually ties into a question that Mia was asking. She said, how do you find shows or people who are likely to pay a license fee up front? Any suggestions? So there was one.
So yeah, like agencies would be that. But for shows and things of that nature, it's almost all back in. So pin right there. So sync licensing is not a get rich quick scheme. Remember I told you my story? It was a year before I even started generating revenue, even though my music was on TV. It was on TV currently and had been playing for 6, 8, 10 months before I even saw a dime. So that being said, like, it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. So I typically work towards next year. My workflow, I'm thinking like, okay, if I get these placements now, next year I'll receive this. I can continue working on the next run of placements. So I'm working literally a year out. So I know, hey, it's going to take, BMI pays out in quarters. So every quarter, every 3 months, you get a check. So it's not every month or every week you're getting chipped out. It's like, hey, every 3 months, you'll get what you made for 6 months ago or 8 months ago. So that being said, you have to you have to work with that sort of mentality in your mind. Oh, bro, I surely hope that's not the case. I surely hope that's not the case. I hope you have many, many years left. But that being said, like that's why I say sync licensing isn't for everyone. It's not a get rich quick scheme, and it's not for people who can't work within the parameters of what it requires. It's kind of ugly.
So Miss Shaw has a question. She's saying, are you saying music needs to be universal and avoid music that seems personal with names and specific people?
So, yes and no. It depends on the style of music that you make, but some of the things that I typically try to avoid, like I typically avoid name dropping in my sync music, because what if I say, hey, my Rolly Don't TikTok, and then Timex wants to use my song for the commercial, but I put Rolex in there. They're not going to use my song now. You see what I'm saying? Or I say, hey, she think like a Burger King burger, and then McDonald's wants to use it. They can't use it now because I name dropped the product. So it has to be universal in that nature to where any brand can use it. Or I make basketball references now, kind of like I can't use this song for football. NFL wants to use it, but they're like the lyrics, like, hey, they're basketball specific. So it's like things of that nature. You have to know what you're making and for who. Now, will I make basketball specific music? Absolutely, but I'm going to point it that direction. I'm going to find a library that wants to utilize that sort of music, and then I'm shoveling that to them. If you're making really specific like when it comes down to lyrical content, if you're making really specific music, chances are they might shy away from it. I don't know. I can't say for sure because I've heard specific lyrics on all kinds of shows and things that they're like, wow, this is oddly specific to the scene that's going on. Like the song is talking about what's going on in the scene. So sometimes they'll use something like, hey, we just found a track that perfectly described the scene that we have and we married them together. Or we called someone and they made us, we told them what we wanted them to make and they made it for us. But one of those two scenarios. But outside of that, I would avoid being super specific in my sync licensing music. Here, now, like I said, going back to my other point, I run into a lot of artists who have a ton of music. This music isn't always licensable. Why is it not always licensable? One of the things that keeps your music from being licensable is profanity or vulgar content. What do I mean by that? You don't hear a lot of Megan Thee Stallion lyrics being in sync unless it's specifically for something that was in a movie or something like that. She might get synced, but believe it or not, like Lizzo gets huge sync placements because her songs lend to the visuals. They lend to that, and they're just ambiguous enough so that you can put them in any scene. It's like, hey, like the lyrics work. But like, hey, twerking and like, yo, for a certain scene or a certain movie, it might work. But chances are, they're not gonna put that in the Walmart ad. They're just not. And
What about, we have a member asking about, do sync companies use AI music?
So typically what's been happening, because AI is very new, I haven't run into a company that wants to sync AI music, and most of the briefs that I receive actually say specifically like no AI use, no AI melodies, no AI vocals. Like they're kind of against AI at this point right now, but there are ways around that. And if you come back, I'll explain what it is I'm talking about. But I ain't gonna talk about that right now because I want you to come back. So if you come back, I'll do it.
Zai had chimed in and he said he's heard so many commercials these days using AI music. Isn't this hurting sync licensing?
It absolutely is. Because when you could just hit generate and grab and make a piece of music, like
You got your intern, go get me coffee and create a R&B blues with the Aerosmith kind of feel, and I want Whitney to sing it. Okay,
yeah,
be right
yeah,
back.
be right back. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so that is happening. But in this instance, like a lot of the libraries, because number one, they can't confirm where the lyrics came from, and they can't confirm if the music has been used or interpolated from someplace else. Because I can put in a Chris Brown song in the Suno and generate, even though you click the thing and say, hey, you own this music, you know people will be doing it anyway. You know, they like whatever. So I can throw that in the Suno and generate 6 other songs with the same chord changes, and now, oh, this is my music now. No, you dropped Chris Brown in there as a reference, and then it scanned that and it made you 6 copies of that. So the libraries cannot confirm, like, hey, because when you submit, you don't just submit them what's called a 2-track. You have to submit to some libraries in the entire stems. So you might have like, not saying like the entire session, like the Pro Tools session or the Logic session or whatever, but they'll want the drum stem, the bass stem, the vocal stems. Like they kind of want it stemmed out. And once you start to like stem stuff out in Suno, it becomes evident that this is AI. And so a lot of companies are even running it through AI checkers before like they do a deal with you. So we're in the wild, wild west of music again. But for me, like I'm still seeing great success in sync, even though like AI is a thing. Like I kind of don't dig that the companies are just blatantly just stamping out AI tracks. And like, yo, that not nothing against Suno or Automate, like all of those things, like, yo, they sound great. Like, but I know from having used it a lot in my process and having heard it, like I know it when I hear it now. I know exactly, like AI kind of has this ashy sound to it. Like I hear it. I'm like, oh, that's AI. Absolutely.
Follow-up question is, what about SMF files?
I typically don't see SMF or OMF files very much because the library's job is to deal with the the studio or the company. And so what the library typically has, that's what the studio will use. So when let's say I submit a package of 10 hip hop tracks for a show or something like that. And the library takes it and they say, okay, I'll typically get a schedule A that has, I'll put in the tracks, the genre, all the information, the metadata. We'll get back to that. That's coming on a subsequent stream. But I'll put all the metadata in, and then they'll ask for, hey, we want to mix the full mix, the mix without the drums and bass, just the drums and the bass, just the vocal, the mix with like a TV track. So they'll ask you for all of these different types of bounces of these tracks. Put a pin there. This is something that also deters libraries from working with some artists because, like, I'll run into artists and like, oh yeah, I want to get in sync. I'm like, yo, do you have your stems from your beats? They're like, yo, what are stems? They're like, yo, did you license these? Where'd you get? Oh, I got that beat from YouTube. Did you pay the producer for that? Oh no, man, it says it's free. And so, like, all of these little compound things that artists neglect to do on their business end comes into play with, like, hey, you have this amazing song that the studio wants to use for their show, and now it's like, well, we can't confirm where that beat came from. Or, hey, somebody else already copyrighted a song with that beat on it because it's free from YouTube. There's 50 songs out there with that beat. And so that's why I'm saying, like, the music industry is 95% business. So if your music does not belong to you, it cannot be synced. And so if I were you, producer, or if I were you, artist, I would go back and start to figure out, like, hey, what are the deals that I have with the producers that actually created my music, and start going through those and making sure I have song splits with the writers that wrote my music, or I have adequate production contracts with the producers that produce my music, and I can produce those when the company asks me and say, hey, we got $10,000 for you, can we use your track? Oh, but we need the song splits, we need the contract with the producer, or we need the information, the BMI information for the producers on the track, who wrote the song, those types of things. You have to be able to provide those. I've lost opportunities because I did not have that information on hand when they asked me, because they're not going to wait. They'll be like, yo, we're just going to the next guy. Well, here, can I get that to you tomorrow? No, never mind. We'll get it from somebody else. It's all good. So that being said, if there's no actionables from this session that you have, please go back and make sure that you have your paperwork in order and you can produce it when they ask you. Because the worst thing in the world is have some money on the table and you can't get it because you just didn't have it on you.
Here's our poll. Okay, so 78% of you participated. Thank you so much.
Do you have any sync placements?
Any sync placements? So yes, a bunch. One of you does, so good for you, amazing. And then 16 of you, no, not yet. 4 of you, I've had a couple in the past, and another 4, what sync? So I think we're covering a wide range of all of those and answering all of those little
Well, the 20 out of 25 that said 16 said no, not yet, and then the other 4 of you that said what sync, that you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Because He's going to show you how to do, exactly that, which is get into the sync space. And that's a lucrative space where you can start making a bit more money. So if you want more personalized coaching, feel free to check out our membership levels there, and we can get you up on game, get you in those libraries, and get you more money.
Absolutely.
But now that we're paused, I want to remind everybody that we do have a live stream tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is a members info session. So if you have a lot of questions regarding what all goes into a membership with Music Alliance, the different tiers, 15, 24, 39, and what you get with each of those, we're going to do that. We're going to spend an hour with you guys tomorrow, 6 o'clock. All streams are 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So join us there. And then next week, we actually have Monday Aggie, which is a social media marketing tool that you can set it and forget it. Aggie is, we have a workshop with them on Monday, and they are partners with us. Then Tuesday, we have Tune Talk. So if you have not sent in a song that you want us to play live on air on Tune Talk, you may send that in. We're looking for professional songs. We're looking for songs that we can, say, hey, this is a great tune, keep working on it. Or, hey, you know what? I would scratch it and start over. So there has to be a WAV format or an MP3. One song submission per person. Thank you. And then we also have Women of Music, which is open to everybody, not just women, on Wednesday, and then production and songwriting on Thursday. So full week again next week as well. And like Quinn said, the link is in the chat if you guys want to sign up and see what all the fun stuff's about. If you have questions and you want a one-on-one consultation, myself or Quinn can reach out to you if you just leave your number in the chat. That's all. Thank you.
Dope. I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat, and I tried to get to a lot of them, but like, yo, James, what's the best agency to try and send your music to? I think that's like the next class. And I'll preface that from saying, like, there is no one shot. There is no best. They're just an agency or a library is just a go-between that they work with certain shows and certain outlets, and I would typically look at the types of placements a library has and see, are those the types of placements that I want to get, and do they align with what I do? Because like, yo, if I go to a library and they have country placements and I don't primarily make country, why am I emailing them? Like, I'm wasting their time. Because like, hey, library, country library, I have hip hop. You'd be like, dude, did you look at our page? Like, we place country music, and we're primarily a country music library. It says countrymusiclibrary.com on the top. Why would you send us that? And so that being said, there kind of is no best. That's why I always preach that you kind of have to do your own homework when it comes down to who you're sending the music to. And in my next few couple lessons down from it, but in my library session, I'll talk about like, hey, the types of music libraries, like, yo, there's some that I don't believe you should send your music to. I don't believe you should do a deal with them. That's no slight against them, no shade to them, but like, yo, like, I don't like the types of deals that they give out, and I don't like the terms. And so, hey, it might be for you, but like, yo, I don't dig it. And I like, hey, I read him like, oh, no, I don't think that's fair. So I can't say, hey, go with these guys, they're the best. Go with them, they're the best. It's just homework you have to do, and I can't steer you anywhere. And I don't want you on my music library. I'm doing good. Stay off my street.
Stay off my street. That's hilarious.
But that's what I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying, like, yo, we're all going to have to find a niche and a road where our music fits in our lane. And if we stay in our lanes, we can all be lucrative.
Amen. I love that. Hey, you guys, any last questions for Dave? We have 2 whole minutes left, and you're welcome to throw your questions in there. So if there's no more questions, Dave, any last tidbits, or would you just like to say a fond farewell?
Yo, homework actionables. let's make sure that our business is done correctly. If you're an artist and you don't own your stems, you don't own your masters, I would say let's start the talks at least with those producers or entities or that with your label. That part of it is super important. And that's where the money is, and hopefully that's where your money is ownership of the IP that you created. IP is intellectual property, and ownership of our intellectual property is what generates money for us. So, like, let's get on the ball with that. God bless you.
All right. Okay, we do have one last question, and it just turned 7 o'clock. But really quickly, Richard is asking: are there sync opportunities for explicit content?
Sometimes, but not all the time. Depends on who you ask.
Depends on who, yeah, and they'll ask you. The supervisors will say, "Hey, we need, we want whatever content for this bar scene or whatever." So yeah, when you get the brief, which is they're going to explain to you what they're looking for, it may or may not. So there's possibilities for anything and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the great thing about sync, is that it is very diverse, and all different genres are welcome and used and
It's
utilized.
broad. It's very, very broad.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, you guys. Well, that's another one for tonight in the books. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. And Dave, thank you so much for everything that you are bringing to the table. I love it. You guys are awesome. And we will see you tomorrow and, of course, next week. If you guys need anything ever at all, home team at musicalliance.com. And have a great night. Thanks so much.